Before we start, I just want to clarify that when this was recorded, the Mavericks game and the Celtics Bulls game had not been postponed yet. They were still going on, and it was just the Heat Celtics that had been postponed. So, yeah. So the Celtics Heat game was just postponed, and this marks the first COVID cancellation of the NBA season. And if you're the NBA, I think you have to be a little bit worried about the future of this season and how you're going to be able to continue for the entire year. Now, although this is the first cancellation, this is not the first time that COVID has severely impacted a team. We obviously saw the Sixers play a game with 7 players or 8 players, and they got destroyed because they were missing pretty much their entire team. The Celtics just recently, had a bunch of their stars have to quarantine. Jason Tatum tested positive, and they were only set to play with 8 players against the Heat. Now, fortunately for them, the game got postponed, but it didn't get postponed because of their players. It got postponed because of the Miami Heat, and that the team was in close contact with someone who had tested positive, and they couldn't take the risk playing the game. So, how does the NBA contain COVID for the whole season? Because obviously, you're not going to go with a bubble for the entire season. You're not going to imprison players away, for an entire 72-game season. But I think they do need to step up, their testing, the safety protocols to make sure this doesn't happen. I mean, we've seen the Wizards pretty much spread COVID to multiple teams and still going out and playing. And whether that's a result of late testing, false tests, or just not being, as safe as they can be, I don't know. But it seems like tests are happening too late, people playing when they have the virus without them realizing it, and risk spreading it throughout the league. Now, the NBA has come out and said that they don't look to suspend the season, even though they canceled the game. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they do end up suspending the season. Not permanently, but for a week or two, just to hopefully get the virus out of the NBA for a little bit. The only problem I see with that, though, is are you going to have to suspend the season every single time someone gets the virus? Because if so, well, this NBA season's never going to finish. Now, you hope, we hear that vaccines are coming out and stuff like that, so, maybe by then it'll all be solved. But I feel like suspending the season for, 2 weeks isn't going to do much. People are still going to catch it and spread it, regardless of whether that's in the NBA or not. It's probably going to come back regardless if you suspend it or not. Because if they just roll out with this season normally, I'm a little worried that we might get in a scenario where, playoffs will come around, if this is all still going on, where there'll be teams playing without their star players and rolling out 8-man lineups in important games, and that's just not fair. You just don't want to see that. So, people always make fun of the last season as being a quote-unquote asterisk ring, Mickey Mouse ring, but if this season, if half the teams don't have all their players, then it's going to be really hard to look at the season the same way. I mean, even in the regular season, ignoring the playoffs, if the Sixers and the Celtics have to go a week or two with only 7 or 8 players, you imagine their records are going to tank, and those are currently the 2 top teams in the East. So if the Celtics or Sixers are going to go ahead and lose 4 in a row because they're missing all their players to COVID, because there wasn't safe testing and there wasn't, proper precaution, well, that's a little unfair. So, maybe it was a good idea that the game was postponed. But the thing is, they weren't going to postpone because of the 8 players. They were going to postpone because of the close contact with the Heat. So, I think if they want to roll out the season, I think you should have, instead of an 8-player limit, expand that limit. If you have 10, 11 players, then yeah, you can play. But if you're forced to run an 8-man rotation, especially when the players you're missing are probably your best players, well then that's almost impossible for you to win that game. And if you have to go long periods of times, especially if you're fighting for a specific seed or fighting to make the playoffs, and you lose a good chunk of your players, well, that's kind of unfair, and there's kind of nothing you can do about it. Now, yes, I know everybody is playing under the same circumstances, but that doesn't mean the circumstances will affect everybody the same. Some people will catch it, some people will not. Now, some people might be stupid and, go out without masks and party and, be susceptible to the virus. And, yeah, maybe you could say, well, it's not unfair, they did it to themselves, but, then again, sometimes it's not your fault when you catch it. Sometimes it just happens. Now, nobody wants to see the season get suspended. That happened last year, and it was terrible. They had to play in a bubble, and nobody really liked that. Nobody wants to see the season suspended, but people do want to see a safe league, a league where everyone's on equal playing fields and playing at full strength. Now, if suspending the season for a few weeks would 100% do that, then you do it. But at the end of the day, that just won't solve things long term. Yes, it'll help immediately, but at the end of the day, it's not ridding the virus of the league. Yes, teams will get back to full strength, but you can't just suspend the season every time someone gets sick. But back to the Heat Celtics thing. I'm not sure what they're going to do. If the Heat are going to play their next game, if the Celtics are going to play their next game. Right now they're scheduled to. But, if multiple tests come back for the Heat, then the Heat may be in the same situation as other teams where they're playing with 8 players, or maybe they won't play at all. Same thing with the Celtics. Right now it looks like they're slated to play their next few games against the Magic, Bulls, and, they may even play the Sixers where both teams are at their 8 players. So that would be kind of interesting. But, yeah, as of right now, it doesn't look great. But, this was happening at the beginning of the NFL season, MLB season, and things kind of worked out. I mean, yes, you still had infections, but it didn't kill the league. So hopefully the same happens here. Now, I've been kind of MIA on this channel, but I'm going to try to get back into it. So, I'm a small channel, but I never ask for people to subscribe, but it does help. So if you could, that'd be great.